In 325 CE, the most powerful man in the world, Emperor Constantine, summoned hundreds of bishops to settle a question that sounds almost absurd. Was Jesus created on a Tuesday? The answer they gave still shapes what over 2 billion Christians believe today. This wasn't abstract philosophy. People rioted in the streets, bishops were exiled, an empire's unity hung in the balance. To understand why this question mattered, we need to grasp a fundamental religious dilemma. Every religion faces a tension. God must be powerful enough to transcend the world, yet approachable enough to care about humanity. Too transcendent, and God becomes distant, unknowable, irrelevant to daily life. Too approachable, and God seems limited, just another being among beings. So Greek philosophy, especially Plato, pushed hard towards transcendence. The spiritual realm was superior to the material because material things decay and die. The truly divine must be utterly mysterious beyond human comprehension. This philosophical backdrop shaped how early Christians debated Christ's nature. Enter Arius, an Alexandrian priest who applied Platonic logic to Christianity. His solution was elegant. God the Father is infinitely transcendent and unknowable. Christ was created as God's way of interacting with the material world. His memorable tagline captured everything. There was a time when Christ was not. Christ, in Arius' view, functioned like Plato's demiurge, the active craftsman who shapes the material world while the ultimate divine source remains at rest. This solved the real problem. If Father, Son, and Spirit are all fully God, aren't Christians worshipping three gods? Arius said no, only the Father is truly God. Christ is the highest created being, divine in function but not in essence. This also explained how God could suffer and die on a cross. The orthodox response came from Athanasius of Alexandria, who would become the immovable object of this controversy. His counterposition: Christ and God share the same substance, they are co-eternal. Christ was never created. The stakes were enormous. If Christ was merely created, is Christian salvation itself diminished? Athanasius argued that only God can save. If Christ isn't fully God, the entire Christian promise collapses. A created being, no matter how exalted, cannot bridge the infinite gap between creator and creation. Two incompatible answers, one church, something had to give, and that something was Emperor Constantine's patience. Constantine didn't care much about theology, he cared about unity. A divided church meant a divided empire, and he'd just finished reunifying Rome after decades of civil war. In 325 CE, he summoned 318 bishops to Nicaea. The council's solution hinged on one Greek word, homoousios, meaning same essence. Christ is of the same essence as the Father. The crucial formula: begotten, not made. This distinction matters. Begotten implies relationship. The Son originates from the Father. Not made denies creation. There was never a time when Christ was not. And critically, this begetting happens outside of time, co-eternal, no before, no after. Arius gave equivocal acceptance. The Bishop of Alexandria refused to take him back. The Council of Nicaea didn't end the controversy, it barely paused it. The fighting continued for 50 more years, and it came down to a single letter: homoousios, same essence; homoiousios, similar essence. One iota, the Greek letter I, separated them. The difference between Christ being identical to God versus merely resembling God, this wasn't hair-splitting. Similar essence left room for Arian ideas. Christ could be like God without being God. The Orthodox insisted on same, no wiggle room, no compromise. Wars were fought over this iota. Bishops were deposed and restored based on which word they endorsed. The empire oscillated between positions as emperors changed and factions gained influence. Constantine himself kept changing positions. The emperor who called Nicaea died in 337 CE, while leaning toward moderate Arianism. Political unity mattered more to him than theological consistency. Athanasius paid the price for his intransigence. He was exiled 5 times by 4 different emperors for refusing to compromise on homoousios. Each time he returned, each time he held the line. His stubbornness looked like fanaticism to contemporaries. History vindicated him. The Council of Constantinople in 381 CE finally reaffirmed Nicaea's position. Within the Roman Empire, Arianism was finished. But outside the empire, a strange twist was unfolding. Here's the irony. Missionaries who converted the Germanic tribes in the mid-4th century were Arians. Ulfilas, who translated the Bible into Gothic, was an Arian bishop. When these tribes invaded the Western Roman Empire starting in the 370s, they brought their Arian Christianity with them. The Visigoths, who sacked Rome in 410, Arian. The Vandals, who took North Africa, Arian. The Ostrogoths, who ruled Italy, Arian. Just as Arianism was dying inside the empire, the new barbarian rulers of the West were almost uniformly Arian and would remain so into the 6th century. The Nicene Creed remains the standard confession for Catholic, Orthodox, and most Protestant churches today. Every Sunday, millions recite words forged in this 4th century fire: God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, one in being with the Father. This controversy established how the Church would handle doctrinal disputes through councils, creeds, and defined orthodoxy. The pattern set at Nicaea repeated for centuries. When questions arose, bishops gathered, debated, and issued binding definitions. The Trinity doctrine, Christians know today, one God in 3 persons, co-equal and co-eternal, emerged from this crucible. It wasn't obvious from Scripture alone. It required centuries of debate, multiple councils, and the exile of stubborn bishops who refused to bend. What seems like abstract theological hair-splitting had enormous consequences. The definition of Christ's nature shaped Christian worship, art, philosophy, and politics for 17 centuries. It determined who was orthodox and who was heretic, who ruled and who was persecuted. Foundational definitions shape entire systems of thought. Get the foundation wrong, and everything built on it tilts. The Arian controversy answered whether Christ was created or eternal, but it left another question wide open. What is Christ's nature? If Christ is fully God, how can he also be fully human? Can one person have 2 natures? Do they mix? Does one dominate? These questions would explode in the 5th century, producing new councils, new creeds, and new schisms that persist today. The Coptic Church, the Ethiopian Church, the Armenian Church all trace their separation from mainstream Christianity to disagreements about Christ's nature that followed Nicaea. The early church discovered that answering one question about Christ inevitably raised another. Each solution created new problems. Each definition demanded further definition. The quest to understand the divine never ends. It only deepens.